Ayo, what's good, y'all? It's Stinger, manufacturer of various odd trinkets, and today I'm going to be showing each and every one of you how DJ S makes Hoodtrap remixes for Babytron. And the remix that we're going to be going over today sounds a little something like this. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to go over in this beat is the melody. And for this beat, I only have two melodic components. The first of which is going to be this super dirty synth from Hive, being the ETE hollow fade. And I have this playing a super simple pattern in a lower octave. Essentially, all we're doing here is playing an arpeggiation, including our root note, which is A sharp, as well as F and F sharp, which is a half step interval, meaning that each of those notes are a half step away from each other. And introducing half note intervals in your melodies is a surefire way to make them sound a lot more sinister and dark. So with that being said, this is what this portion of the melody sounds like. And then the next and final part of this melody is going to be the AZ glider from Hive. And all we're doing here is playing a relatively simple yet catchy lead melody. And yet again, with this portion of the melody, we're making use of those half step intervals. So as you can see, we have C sharp and C, as well as F sharp and F, which we used before. And as well as that, we're also making use of the root of our scale, which was A sharp. So for this first half, I just have it playing a relatively catchy melody using those notes. And then for the second half, I copy it over and then put it up by an octave. I hate using this word to describe things, but this is actually a hack when it comes to sustaining energy in your melody. So yeah, to summarize leads for these kind of beats, you're going to want to make use of half step intervals and the root note. You're going to want to play a rhythmically catchy pattern. And this is optional, but if you want to sustain the energy within your melody, put it up by an octave in the second half. So with that being said, this is what the lead sounds like. And that's literally everything when it comes to the melody. So with that being said, we're going to go over the next portion of this beat, which is the drums. And the most important section of the drums for this beat is going to be the snare. The snare pattern is literally what makes Hoodtrap. So you want to make sure you have this signature snare pattern set in stone. Now, mine includes a little bit of variation, so I'm going to get rid of it. But this pattern right here is exactly what you need. Now what I did, which is completely optional, is I added in low velocity accent snares. And I just did this just to make the snares a little bit more interesting. But as long as you have that signature snare pattern, you're good to go. So with that being said, this is the pattern that I'm playing with the snares. The next essential component of the drums is going to be the 808s. And for these, you want to have them layered in some way with the snare. So I just have it playing the same first three notes of the snare pattern. Making sure your 808 and your snare is layered is pretty much essential for this genre, so try to keep that in mind when making these beats. And then the final essential drum component is going to be a clap. And I just have this playing a basic clap pattern hitting on the 2 and the 4. Now, I threw in a couple other things that aren't exactly essential, but they do well in adding some variation to the drums and making them a bit more full. And that's going to be this open hat hitting at the same time as the 808s, as well as this classic jerk chant. So with that being said, this is what the drums sound like all together. Alright, and then the final portion of this beat that we're going to go over is arrangement. And there are only a couple things that I really want to cover in terms of arrangement. The first of which is going to be this club-esque breakdown. All I did for this is I chopped up our melody, chopped up our 808, and then I have our clap hitting on the 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's all that's playing for the first half of that breakdown. But for the second half, I introduce our snare pattern. And introducing some kind of breakdown in your beat and giving your listener a break from that signature snare pattern is something that's going to keep your listeners listening and something that's going to stand out in the track. So with that being said, this is what the breakdown sounds like going into the next portion of the beat. And then the final aspect of arrangement that I want to cover is going to be variation. You want to make sure, since there isn't a whole lot in terms of the drums or the melody, that you're including some kind of variation throughout your beat. That way it's not just a stagnant drum pattern playing the whole way through. And here's some things that you can do to add some variation to your beat. The first thing you could do is add or remove drum patterns. So as you can see, for this section right here, I don't have our open hat or our chant playing. And then in this section, I throw these patterns in. It's something that's kind of subtle, but does make a difference. The next thing you could do for variation is change the patterns themselves. So for a portion of our beat, I have our 808 playing a different pattern than it does throughout the rest of the beat. And all I'm doing is introducing some octave variation, as well as introducing the fifth of our scale. Throwing in some kind of variation with the pattern is something that's going to stand out a lot and something that's really going to catch a listener's ear. And then the final thing that I did for this beat in terms of variation is going to be melodic effects automation. And the melodic effect that I chose to use is going to be shaper box. I just have it on a stutter preset under the time section, and I have it automated so that it only plays during a certain section of the beat. So this is what the melody sounds like without the shaper box. And this is what it sounds like with the shaper box. Yet again, it's just something subtle that's going to make a little bit of a difference in terms of variation in the beat. And that's everything when it comes to the beat. The final thing that you're going to need for this remix is going to be an acapella. And you could literally just search up Babytron acapella on YouTube and you'll find a bunch. I decided to use the acapella from his song Talking Flagrant, and I feel like it matches this beat perfectly. And when choosing an acapella, you want to find one that's in a similar BPM range as your beat. That way you don't have to time stretch the acapella and make it sound all weird. But yeah, with that being said, that's going to pretty much cover how DJ S makes Hoodtrap remixes for Babytron. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the comments down below and I will do my best to answer them. Also, consider checking out my Patreon where I post the FLPs to all of my beats in all of my videos. That way, if you wanted to study the mixing, mastering, arrangement, melody, midis, all that kind of stuff, it's right at your fingertips. And as well as that, on my Patreon, you get access to one of my sound kits per month. And finally, consider subscribing as I post one tutorial a week and one sound kit a month. Other than that, it's gonna be it. Peace.